Settle down, brother. This is the Quarter Report. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. We are recording this straight after Floyd Shivambu's bombshell press conference, where he said that Jacob Zuma is being taken advantage of by political scoundrels, taking advantage of his kindness and the gullibility that comes with age to steal millions of rands from the MK party and remove political rivals. That somebody is taking drugs late at night and tweeting recklessly, quite clearly meaning the president's or former president's favorite daughter, Duduzile Zuma, who he had that spat with some months ago, and where he basically said he's leaving MK and starting a new political party, but just stopped short of actually doing it. He has said he will never leave MK, he will always be a member of the MK party, while clearly going to start another political movement. Remind you of anybody? Oh yes, current MK president and former ANC member Jacob Zuma. We have so much to talk about, and I want to start with, he gave a very good speech. Floyd Shivambu is associated with being kind of the political ugly stepsister a little bit of the EFF, from the sense that he was never considered the great orator, the great speech maker who would get legions of followers and convince them to vote for the economic freedom fighters in the MK. Malema and Ndlozi were seen as that in the EFF, and Jacob Zuma is seen as that in MK. And so when people were talking about how Shivambu has basically screwed himself in his political career, a lot of people before today were saying, if he tries to start a political party, it's going to be a total disaster because he doesn't have the charisma. Even as he knows how to build political parties and movements, he doesn't have the charisma to pull voters. But I was quite impressed with the manner and tone with which he delivered his speech. He didn't look nervous. He didn't look beset. He didn't look touched. He was very clear and methodical. And for a lot of people, would have said a lot of the right things. But we're going to dig into that. What did he actually say? The very first thing that he said was that he was fired as MK Secretary General over nonsense and fake news from political scoundrels. He said that there were fake intelligence reports that were demonstrably false, that were essentially claiming that Shivambu was trying to consolidate his power within the MK party to remove Jacob Zuma as party president. Shivambu was very clear, and his claim is that those were demonstrably false, that he had been brought in as Secretary General of MK Party to build out the structures of a political party. If you then think that building out the structures of a political party means that you're building power to take out the president of the party, well, then that's on you. But then other people would respond and say, well, he brought in a lot of EFF people. He sidelined a lot of originalists or founders or whatever they're called, the December 16th of the MK party. So maybe there is an argument that he was consolidating power. But then he said that it got quite extraordinary. He said there were these superstitious beliefs that he was going to have Zuma taken out involving being presented a head or something like that, and some kind of weird magic witchcraft stuff. He was pretty unequivocal that he said that that was nonsense. And then he said that reports had come out saying that he would be redeployed to become a member of parliament, but then that some more intelligence reports and people in and around the MK party high end said, no, he's going to use being in the parliamentary caucus to gain power in a different way and mount a challenge to remove the president of MK. And then he said that there are all of these scoundrels around the president, this is Zuma, of the MK party, leading him astray. And he was very diplomatic, and he worked very hard to say that he loves Zuma, he admires Zuma, he doesn't contradict Zuma. He said he's learned more in 6 months with Zuma than in 10 years in the EFF about real politics. And so what he was trying to say was the supreme leader had been misled. But that is in and of itself a very hectic thing to say. It says it's not Zuma's fault, but he has had the wool pulled over his eyes, which is not something that Jacob Zuma would take well. But Floyd Shivambu described political scoundrels taking advantage of the president's kindness and gullibility that comes with age, which is saying the quiet part out loud, right? Didn't Malema on Monday say that you can't vote for MK if you're voting for the future of the party because MK is led by a very old man? So even though he was trying to soften the blow, he was really putting in some punches. Even as he said Zuma's been misled, I don't have a problem with Zuma, he described Zuma as weak and somebody who could be misled and have the wool pulled over his eyes. And then he said that the main reason why people are pulling wool over Zuma's eyes is that there are scoundrels stealing 7 million rand a month from the MK party coffers. And Shivambu said the word we a lot. And by that, he could have just meant I, the royal we. But he was clearly referring to some of his supporters and allies within the party. He said they were trying to stop that money from flowing. And so they became enemies of these people. What happened next? Well, there have been all these reports. In fact, News 24 reported just before the press conference that Shivambu was going to start a political party called Maibuye. A lot of people have suspected him launching a new political party. Most of us have thought that's a bad move, but like, where else could he go? We actually said earlier on the show this week, who would take him back? He might be too damaged goods. He addressed all of that. He said that the ANC was directionless, rudderless, owned by the white system and Stellenbosch money. It's an old argument about the ANC, a very Zuma argument about the ANC. He said that the EFF he would never go back to because it's a cult. C-U-L-T, all caps, a cult. Very clear there that that bridge is not being rebuilt under any circumstances. And then he said that there was nowhere else he would really go. But he never said that he was leaving MK. He never said he was leaving MK. He just said, we are going to do what I think is good politics, which I've done before. He talked about his time in the ANC Youth League, coming up with an ideology for economic freedom that would have to exist outside of the ANC Youth League that became a founding document in the manifesto of the economic freedom fighters. He talked about his theorizing about how MK could become a thing. And he was very clear that political parties can't be formed around or by individuals or groups of friends. It has to be the will of the people who want it. And so he says we're going to go on this big listening session extravaganza across the country, a freedom charter or the real national dialogue that doesn't cost 700 million rand. And they're going to go and they're going to listen to all of these people, hear their real needs and wants. And he was quite specific. He said that they need to find out if there is a need for a new political party. What should its values and principles be? How should it be uniquely different from the other political parties? And how should it be funded? Those are the 4 categories that he said require answers. Now, I'm skeptical of that because we know what Floyd Shivambu's politics are. He opened the press conference by addressing all the workers' parties and workers' representatives who were there. We know that he's got pretty hardcore variations of Marxist values. I doubt if he went on listening to it and the people of South Africa said, we want free market economics, he'd go, shup, I'll do that. But he made a very, very, very big deal about what's going to go into this process. Now, I personally think that he was never going to come out and say, bam, we're starting a political party. He wants to make it look like he hasn't been harboring this ambition for a while. So some people will say that he has nothing right now. I think he's got a plan in the works already. He just needs to do the cosplay performance of, we're going to go and find out and do a listening session with the country.
Something interesting, I mean, this is now going to be his 4th political party.
Yeah.
Technically, if you can't count the ANC Youth League. And
well, definitely is
Floyd,
a card-carrying member.
Yeah. From the beginning, each time he's moved, has said, the revolution. And I think that's what he sees his politics as, like radical Marxist, Leninists, workers orientated, and then each time he goes, no, this is the new place where this is going to live.
Yes.
And every time, so it was the EFF and then it's not anymore. Then now it's the MK, now it's not anymore. Now he's going to go find and create the new one that's the new home of this kind of politic. And I just look at it and I go, I've never seen someone learn so much after the fact.
Yeah. You got the email later.
Honestly, like he only is all this stuff. Every time he makes these kinds of moves, everyone is like, hey, what about this? What about this? And he's like, no.
No foresight.
Yeah. And then a period of time later, this last time, 10 months, he's like, no political party should be made around one person.
Shouldn't be a family business, shouldn't be tribalist or regional or whatever.
Anyway.
So we'll get to that in a second. No, you're absolutely right. But I do want to say that he might believe that there is space for a genuine leftist workers' party. He might believe that he goes all out on workers, and he did address all the workers at the beginning of the press conference, that he could create a genuine socialist or a more significant than what the Communist Party is. Then he went on a listicle of all the things a political party must not be. And what he was doing here was subtweeting a whole bunch of political parties that exist. Must not be a personal project, must not be family run, must not be regional, provincial, tribal, ethnic. So, MK. Slash the Patriotic Alliance. Then he goes, it must not be a platform for self-enrichment. That might be all the parties, to be honest. Then he goes, it must not be a cult. He mentioned earlier that the EFF is a cult. He says it must not be a fiefdom, i.e. run by one person. And again, you can think PA, you can arguably think DA because Helen Zille's will still gets their way. You can think, I think the ANC is more contested, but Ramaphosa's basically won total dominance there. You definitely think about the MK party. And then he starts talking about how good he is at building political parties. And he's really interesting. because he goes on a grand tour of the country, naming different parts, different regions of different provinces that he says they're going to go and listen to. But you know where he really focuses is the Eastern Cape, and he starts with the Eastern Cape. Why is that interesting? It's the birthplace of the ANC. It's the province where they have stuck ANC in the face of disastrous service delivery collapses and economic dysfunction and political corruption, more than any other province pretty much in the country. And so maybe he sees a way, again, when he's thinking about potential future voters, no other party's been able to make inroads against the ANC's dominance in the Eastern Cape. Maybe he believes that that could be a window. And then there's one final window I want to mention, is that the first thing he said when he was talking about all the people he was going to talk to was religious leaders. He went on and on and on about religious leaders. So maybe an evolution of his politic could be, it's going to be leftist worker-centric, but it's also going to be God-centered. He by the way, he as we know, went to visit Shepherd Bushiri. It's a very Christian country. And let's just say the African Christian Democratic Party has not been very successful at pulling the Christian vote. So there may be a window that he sees to combine Christian-centered politics with leftist politics and take advantage of people's religious belief systems to gain a unique voter base. And then in the Q&A, he called Duduzile a drug addict. It was wild, just completely out of pocket in response to a question. He talks about, what was it, people smoking drugs, I think he said, or taking drugs and tweeting recklessly in the middle of the night. Now, that can only be about Duduzile Zuma. We have covered this relentlessly. We covered it again on Tuesday about that infamous midnight rant for which she saw absolutely no consequences when she said, "Fuck Floyd," and "Fuck supporters, they're all mafikizolos." He was also talking about the untouchables, right? Wink, nudging again, family business, people who can't be touched, who don't face consequences, to kind of show more and more that he is now positing MK is not a real political party. MK is more as a family business. So that was the press conference. What do we think about it? I think that Floyd played a very good hand in trying to resuscitate his reputation and change the narrative. He really made a pitch that he is a serious person and this is not the end of his career. Now, we wait to see how Zuma claps back at him. And I'm sure MK is going to kick him out any second now, although it would be super interesting if MK just left him as a nothing member of parliament. Sorry, not even member of parliament, just member of the party, and they just played chicken, basically. That would be super interesting as strategy to show that MK will not be provoked. But as far as creating a new political party, I think Shivambu was mainly doing that press conference to convince other major politicians to go with him. I don't think that was a pitch to voters. I think that was a pitch to politicians and powerful people to support his party and give it a chance. Because he has seen the Ace Makashules and others. What was that one former DA mayor who opened Shiluva and it went nowhere? Like, we have seen people who were big within a party structure, even Bossa, right? Bossa really did not get close to the 10% they were saying, talking about, with all of Musi Mamane's clout, how little power many politicians have once they're outside of a structure, how irrelevant they get very quickly. And so I think he is going, how do I get funding and how do I get clout? I need clout. I need people to come with me. And I think this was a pitch to them. And it'll be a while before we find out whether or not it works. But I think on net, Floyd Shivambu came out of that press conference in a better position than where he went in. What do you reckon?
I think Floyd was really effectively preemptively striking, kind of. He laid out, without ever directly saying anything, he laid out the fact that Zuma is old and manipulatable, is easily manipulated, that there is the Untouchables faction, which is, we're presuming, the Duduzile faction, that have clearly now successfully neutered him in MK. And he has established that he is not leaving MK. He will be fired.
Yes.
And that makes him look far more reasonable than 10 months after signing up for something,
throwing
quitting.
a fit and then bouncing. Yeah,
so
that's true.
I think it was a very good PR move from his perspective, and he was trying to like save the situation.
Yeah.
What I am interested by, though, is the idea, because remember when Floyd came in, all the MK people were like, oh my goodness, we're about to become a real party. I'm going to be a real boy because we're actually going to have
a Pinocchio reference?
Yes. No, I'm going to be a real boy. Just the same way he's going to create a political party.
Right.
It's like, oh, we're gonna have a constitution, we're gonna have all these things. He built the EFF, now he's gonna build MK. Now what? Because clearly the untouchables Duduzile faction, as he said so many times, has successfully fended him off from their little like I don't know, best word for it. Squad. Yeah. So what happens to MK now? Do they just continue not having a structure, not having an effective constitution, not having all these things? Where's this more new great direction coming from now?
Totally. And again, what happens when Jacob can no longer or does no longer want to run a political party? Who is it? Who is it next? Because they don't really have anyone now of national relevance. Of course, they've got Dali Mpofu, but no one's ever voted for Dali Mpofu. John Klope, no one's ever voted for John Klope. They don't have politicians with track records of accumulating political support beyond Zuma. So we'll see. We will see. The WhatsApp line will be back tomorrow. As you could see, we needed to bake in all of this reaction. The number is 0607613436. Become a recorder, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Quarter Report. Thank you for listening and watching. Ciao.